Hi guys, so let's start. So first of all, we are going to start with the Hackerrank interview preparation kit, and we are going to start with the warm-up challenges, and we are going to try to solve all these with JavaScript. So let's start with this sales by match. So there is a large pile of socks that must be paired by color. Given an array of integers representing the color of each sock, determine how many pairs of sock with matching colors there are. For example, length of array is 7. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. There is one pair of color 1 and one of color 2. There are 3 odd socks left, one of each color. The number of pair is 2. And so complete the sock merchant function in the editor below. Following are the parameters. N is the number of socks in the pile, and the array is the colors of each sock, and the return is going to be the number of pairs. So the first line contains an integer n, the number of socks represented in AR. That's not our concern. So the output should be like this. So for instance, we have this input. So we have 10 ones and 10 ones, so it matches. So this is one pair. Then we have 10 again, and then again it matches here. So we have two pairs. Then 20 and 20 makes three pairs. Then 50, 30, 50 and 20 are left, so that's why we have only three pairs, as you can see in this pictorial representation. So let's start. So let's just quickly switch this to JavaScript here, and inside here we get the sock merchant function, and here we have the input. N is going to be our length, and the AR is going to be the array with the colors. So let's start. So let's think of something how we can count the pairs. So what we can do is we can so basically we have different colors and we want to count the pairs of each color. So for instance, if we have an object with let's try. So we have, let's say, an object colors equals to an object, and then we loop over our array. So we say for each. So then we say, okay, the first thing is going to be a color, and inside of this we are going to see if the current color is already there or not. So, and if it's there, is it already matched with the pair or not? If it's already matched, we are going to create another part of it. Okay, and if it's not, then we are not going to create it. Okay, so let's try. For each color, what we are going to do is we have to check if our colors has own property of color. So if we have our property, otherwise what we are going to do is we are going to set it. So colors of color equals to, so now we have to basically set the base rule here. We are going to match all of these. So what I am thinking about is how do we match the pairs. So and again we have to count the pairs as well. So let's do this, that for each of them we are going to, let's say, so initially it's going to have a 0 on its index, and if it has, so where were we? So we set its value there at the property. So, and the next time it comes we see if the property is there. That means we have reached a perfect uh, a perfect match for our pair. So what we are going to do is, now we must have a count for our uh, mm, pairs. So let's set it to 0 initially. So since we have reached a similar color, what we are going to do is we are going to increment our count, and at the end of the function we are going to return this count. So, but since we have reached there, what we have to do is we have to remove our color again from our object. Since the next time, the third time I have to come here, I must go there to make it perfectly work. So what we have to do is we have to remove that key from our object. So let's do that. So that we are going to do simply by using the delete keyword, and here we are going to just say colors of color like this. And so let's go over it again. So what we did, what we had this n number of socks, and then we had an array with describing each uh, color of each sock, and what we wanted out of it is the basically the pairs of all the colors. So we need to count the pairs out of it. So what we have to do, so what we did, we created an object, and we looped over our simple formula. We looped on our array, and on each color we saw that if the color was not already in our object, we just put it there, and if it was not there, we just put it there. If it's there, it means we already had it before. So another same one has come, so this means we have reached our pair. So we increment our counter and just delete the old property from there, and that's it. And instead of this array of 0, I think we just can save a 0 there, and let's add a semicolon there. and let's try to run our code and see what happens. So yeah, it passes the test. So let's submit our code again. So it passes all of the test cases. So now we can move on to the next one. Easy. Okay, so now we have to count valleys. So an avid hiker keeps meticulous records of their hikes. During the last hike that took exactly steps for every step. It was noted if it was uphill or a downhill step. And hikes always start at and end at the sea level, and each step up or down represents a 1 unit change in the altitude. We define the following terms. A valley is a sequence, a mountain is a sequence of consecutive steps above sea level, starting with a step up from sea level and ending with a step down to sea level. A valley is a sequence of consecutive steps below sea level, starting with a step down from sea level and ending with a step up to sea level. Given the sequence up and down steps during a hike, we find and print the number of valleys walked through. Steps equals to 8 path D D U U U D D. The hiker first enters a valley 2 units deep. Then they climb out up onto a mountain 2 units high. Finally, the hiker returns to sea level and ends the hike. So complete the counting valleys function in the editor below, and the parameters we have is the first one is the steps, and the second one is the path in a string that describes the path. So in return we require the number of valleys that are traversed. So this is somehow it looks like. So this means that the hiker went down to one valley. So let's think of something how we can do that. So first of all we need to keep a check on our current level, so where we are at the sea level. So the sea level is, let's say, at 0, and a valley basically is counted when you go down the sea level and come back to the sea level again. So let's see, and it's always when you go up you want to count the sea level. So let's start again here. So first of all we need to keep one thing, so the count of our valleys. So let's set it to 0, and then the level of our hiker, so let's start that to 0 as well. So because we know that we always start with 0, and then we have the path. So what we can do is we can say path dot for each. So this way we, so basically what we can do is we can just split it before doing the for each, so we get each step out of it, and on each step what we are going to do is we are going to basically check if it was toward upside or downside. So was it up, was it down? So if it was up we need to level up our counter. So let's level it up like this, and if it was down, we need to level it down like this. Okay, but how do we count the values out of it? So every time we are on the step on the upside and our level came to 0, see, so once our level came to 0, which matches our description of completing a valley, so this means that we have uh, crossed one valley, and in case of this we have to increment our count variable, and at the end of our function let's just simply return our count variable. So let's try and run the code. Okay, looks like I did something wrong there. So, and it's returning 0 in every case, so I think I did something wrong there. So let's see. I think my split is not working, so let's try this way. Yeah, so if you don't give anything there, it will not split it, or by default it splits on spaces, so that would not make it run this for each loop. So if I give it an empty character, this means it's gonna just simply create an array out of that string with each character as an element of that string array. So let's submit our code and let's move on to the next one. Okay, so let's move to the next challenge. So this is jumping on the clouds. So there is a new mobile game that starts with consecutively numbered clouds. Some of the clouds are thunderheads and other are cumulus. The player can jump on any cumulus cloud having a number that is equal to the number of current cloud plus 1 or 2. So if it's currently 1, you can only go to the 2 or 3, and the player must avoid the thunderheads. Determine the minimum number of jumps it will take from the starting position to the next cloud. It's always possible to win the game. For each game you will get an array of the clouds, number 0 if they are safe, or 1 if they must be avoided. So ones are the thunderheads and zeros are the cumulus clouds, and index the array from 0 to 6. The number of each on each cloud, it's index in the list, so the player must avoid the clouds at indices 1 and 5, like this 1 and 5. They could follow these two paths: 0 2 4 6 or 0 2 3 4 6. So 0 2 3 4 6 or 0 2 4 and 6. The first path takes 3 jumps while the second takes 4, so this means we have to return 3. So complete the jumping cloud on clouds function in the editor below, and it takes the following as parameters: integer c and an array of binary integers, and we have to return integer in the minimum number of jumps that are required. Okay, so let's look at our symbol input and output. So let's start. So here we get the array with the coming clouds. So how we are going to solve this? So first thing we need to do is we need to basically loop through our clouds, and then we need to also keep the record of our steps that we are going to take. So we need two things. So first of all, let's deal with the record of our steps. So one way to do that is basically we can keep an array and push whatever the number of steps we need to take with time. So let's do that. So let's take these steps and initialize it is with an empty array, and then let's create a loop. Basically what we have to do is we have to jump around between the loops, so it's not going to be wise to use for loop or for each. So let's try to use a while loop here. So while I is less than, so now what we have to do is we have to basically loop till the length of our clouds array. So it's going to be like this and this, and this will take us to from 0 till the length of our array. So let's add a -1 there, so it takes it to the last of it correctly. And then what we are going to do is we are going to basically check if the so basically we have to see if we can jump to the next two elements or not, and if we can, we will jump 2. If we cannot, we will then jump 1, simply 1. Basically that's because we need to find the minimum number of steps we had to take, so we can do that by doing this. So what we have to do is we first of all have to see if we can jump 2 at once, otherwise we have to do something else. But what we have to do is we have to see if the length is jumpable, but we also have to see if the value there is 0. So if it's 0, then it's a cumulus cloud and we can jump there. So we can do this. We need to check the second index of our array from the current index, and we can basically see, so if we can jump to that index, and if that index is 0, then we basically jump to it. So we just push our whatever the value of the index is to our array. So just push 1 plus 2 there, and just basically increment our counter 2 times. Otherwise we are going to increment our counter once, and we are going to push something here as well, since we already took one step here as well. So I plus 1 here. Why we did this? Because we have the confidence that there is always going to be a possible solution. There won't be any case where there are 2 consecutive thunderclouds and all that. So that's why we did this. So let's return the length of our steps array. This will basically tell us the total number of steps that we took. So here it is fine. So this, what we did, we took 2 steps there, then we took 1 step there, and then we took one other step, that's 3. And in this case we took 1 step, and then we took 2 steps, and then we took 1 step. and then we took 2 steps. So there is something wrong in our code, so we'll have to check that. So yeah, what is happening here is that we are missing this one, because this is ignoring the last one, and this one is to basically not go to the last one and check something, because we don't want the loop to run in on the last one, because there is nothing else remain there in the last one, right? But we still want to count it because we have to do something about it, right? So let's run this code now. So now we got the fine output, so let's submit our code and move to the next one. So let's move to the next challenge. So this is repeated strings. In the meanwhile, I need to check something, that my thumbnail is right or not. So basically I need to set this one instead and save it. Okay, so let's go back. So in this challenge, what we have to do is, there is a string of s name of lowercase English letters that is represented infinitely many times. Given an integer n, find and print the number of letter a's in the first n letters of the infinite strings. So for instance, we have this a b c a c as a string, and the substring we consider is ABC, AC, and then ABC, AC. Then the first 10 characters of the entire infinite string. There are 4 occurrences of A's in the substring. So then what we have to do is, basically we see that if the length of the required n is not equals to our string or not. So if it's not, if it is equal or basically less than the length of our string, then we are good, we can start with that. If not, we'll have to create a substring. So basically what we can do is, we can multiply our, basically append a same string to the same string unless we get to the length of our string. And if we get to the length, then we have to basically count the number of a's in those particular 10 strings, 10 length of that 10 strings. So now we have got all the test cases to pass, so we have earned a new third star. So let's continue. So let's proceed. Let's see where does it take us. Okay, so 70% of companies test this subject. So this deals with working with arrays. So let's start and see what this challenge is all about. So the first one is 2D array DS. How do we access and use 2D arrays? And the maximum score is 15. The success rate is 92%. So let's start with solving this challenge. So we have given a 6 by 6 2D array with some zeros and ones in it. An hourglass in A is a subset of values with indices falling in this pattern in arrays graphical representation A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There are 16 hourglass in array. An hourglass sum is the sum of an hourglass value. Calculate the hourglass sum for every hourglass in AR. Then print the maximum hourglass sum. The array will be 6 by 6. For example, the hourglass sums are 63 minus 63, 34, 9, the highest hourglass sum is 28 from the hourglass beginning at row 1 and column 2. So row 1 and column 2. So row 1 and column 2 is this. Rather this. So 043. So row 1 is this and column 2 is this. So it begins there like this. So 0, 4, 3, 1, 8, 6 and 6. So basically we get this array and then we have to return the maximum hourglass sum. Each of the 6 lines of input contains 6 space separated integers. All that. Okay. So basically, first thing first, we have to first of all divide our array into hourglasses. So hourglasses are going to be every time 4 into 4, so it's 16 hourglasses every time. But how do we support that? So basically, we first start with a 0 index and take it 0, 1, 2 of our first row, and then move on to the next one, 1, 2, 3, and then move on to the next one, 2, 3, 4, and the next one, 4, 5, 6, right? So 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, and 3, 4, 5, 6 in that case. And then in the second one, what we are going to do is we always have the centerth one. So for instance, we have 0, 1 and 2. This way it's always going to be the ones, and in this case when we have 1, 2 and 3, it's always going to be 2, so it's going to be the second index always. For instance, 2, 3 and 4 here, and then this is going to be the third one. So same case with that, and then we move to the 0, 1 and 2, and in the case of 2 we also do the same thing with the other one. So what we need to do is we need somehow two counts or looping variables. So first one to deal with the row, and then one for the column, and then one for the mid column. So how are we going to do this? So, and then we have to move in the down columns as well, and then we have to basically sum all of the values that we get here. So first of all, let's try to get one sum hourglass out of it, and then move on to the next one. So let's begin solving our problem. So as I said, first of all, we need a solution that will do a 2D. Since we are dealing with a 2D array, we need to loop 2 times, one for the column and one for the rows. And then we have to create a basically the basically we have to get all the integers at the hourglass positions and sum them. So the minimum value is going to be the -9. So for instance, if everything in the hourglass is -9, the max of the count of, or the sum of his, it's going to be -63. So the max that we are going to set is going to be -63. So we need something to match with it. Then what we are going to do is we are going to do a for loop and a nested for loop on our array. So we are going to start with an I at 0, and we are going to take it to the 4, because we cannot go beyond 4 every time. So if we consider this, so we start with 0, 1, 2, 3, and we have to stop here because after this there is no hourglass. So we always have to reach and stop at 4. So let's increment our integer, and the next one is going to deal with the columns. So let j equals to 0, and j is also going to be less than 4, since it's a 6 by 6 matrix. It's always going to be the same for both of the columns and rows. Now what we have to do is we have to sum them up. So let's see if we have a sum, and if our sum is somehow greater than the max, we have to basically set the max to sum, and after all of this we have to return the max out of it. But now how do we get this sum out of the hourglass? Now we have our I and j, so we have to basically reach all the values there. Now to reach the 2d array, we need to use this, something like this, and so our sum is going to be something like this. So at first we need to start with the 0th index, and the one to reach that we need to do 0 0, which is I and j at the moment, and then I have to basically take the 2 next of it. So basically these two, so 0 0, and then these two. Since my outer one is I and the inner one is j, so every time I'm at I equals to 0, the j is going to loop to 1 and 2 and 3. So what I have to do is I have to go here and I have to reach my second position, which is going to be I, which is still 0, and the other one is going to be j plus 1, which is going to be 1 in this case, and then I have to add it again with I and j plus 2, which is going to be this. Then again, now since I've already captured the 3 on top of it, now I need to go to the next one, which is going to be how exactly. So this one is going to be always with I plus 1 and j plus 1. How? Let me show you very quickly. So for the next one, for the second one or the middle one, we always go one beyond our I and j. So I and j here is here, so we go here. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So now we have to move to the next one in the third one, which is going to be how. So I'm gonna need I plus 2 and j plus 2. This is because we have moved to the next line, and then again and again. So what are going to be added here? So here we only want j, not j plus 2, because it's the 0th one of our row. So this represents the row and this represents the column. So j is, since j is 0 here, so we need to get this one, for instance, this one. So j is to be 0 and I has to be 0 plus 2, right? That makes sense there. But now it's to get the second one. How do we do that? So basically we need to do I plus 2. This marks as the row, so it says that we are at this position, but we have to go there. How do we do that? So j has to be added with 1 to reach this index. Since similarly for the last one, how do we do that? So I have to say I plus 2 and j plus 2. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add all of this and store it in some variable. This 0 here was not necessary at all, so I can also do this, right? And then I can just see if this sum was more than my max, and I just return that. So let's run this code. Okay, so there must be something there. So this a, so my bad. So all the places where I have this a, I have to have this arr, or basically what we can do is we can create an a out of r to avoid the problem. My bad, guys. So now our test cases are passing. Let's submit the code and see what comes out of it. So now all the test cases are passed. So now let's move on to the next challenge. So the next one is arrays left rotations. A left rotation operation on an array shifts each of the array's element 1 unit to the left. For example, if 2 left rotations are performed on array this, the array would become 3, 4, 5. So we take out these 2 and put them there. Okay, note that the lowest index item moves to the highest index on a rotation. This is called a circular array. Given an array A of integer n and a number of t, perform d left rotations on an array, return the updated array to be printed as a single line of space separated integers. Okay, so we get an array and the number of times we need to do the operation. So for instance, d is 4, we do it like this: we move 1 there, then we move 2 there, then we move 3 there, then we move 5 there, 4 there, sorry. Okay, so that looks very simple. So let's go there. So here A is the array that we have to basically do the operation on, and D is the number of times that we have to do that operation. So first of all, we need to know and understand how that operation works. So basically we have to take out the lowest one from our array and move it to the last one. So how do we move it to the last one? So to move to the basically there are going to be a lot of ways that we can do this, and one simple one is the slice one. So if we do splice on an array, so we can see how many we have to cut them. So 0, and we need to delete just one, and if we want to replace it somewhere else, we have the other one, but this doesn't deal with that, but it does return you the one that's deleted. So delete here is there. So now you have returned from the 0th one. Now what we have to do is we have to just simply push it to the last of the a, right? But now we have to basically do this thing. D number of times. Okay, so let's take an array. Let's take a loop from 0 unless we reach D. Okay, and each time we just do this, right? We just take an element out of the 0th element out of it, and if you do it like this, it will tell you that it's gonna return you the deleted one, right? So let's test. So did it do anything at all or not? I think it did something, but it did something wrong there. So it should be 77, while my 77 is there. So I am doing it one more time than the required. So let's, yeah, because I started at 0. So if I, instead of starting at 0, if I started 1, it should run fine, right? Okay, so let's submit our code and see what happens. So somehow it's not so this is the test case that was failing, so I have to see the limit. So let's go to the environment page and see what's the limit that I am crashing on. So let's move to the JavaScript thing. There you are. So what are the columns telling us? So time and memory, and okay, so the JavaScript tells us that. Okay, okay, so now if you see it, it's working fine, but we need to improve our code. So how we can do that? So if you see, it's taking a lot of time here. So first of all, we have to reduce the number of steps our code has. So first of all, we can remove this for and instead have a while loop there. So while d is there, we need to do minus minus of our d. So once the d reaches 0, the loop will automatically ends, and this goes for the part of the loop. And what about this part? So let's first of all copy it here. So what so one thing we can do it like this, but the splice, how does the splice work? So basically splice goes to the index that we provide, and it basically takes the loop way. So we have to remove this and take out this and instead use some other function. So basically we have a shift function. What it does, it basically, if you don't provide anything, it takes you out the 0th element, and returns it, and all we have to do is put it in that thing at the end of the array. That's what the push does. So let's try this again. Hopefully it should work now. Now you see it passes on all the test cases because we made it good. So let's move on to the next challenge. Let's see how much time we have. So we have already streamed for almost 1 hour. So let's move back to, I am enjoying this. So let's move back to our stream and see, or maybe we can continue this again tomorrow. And I would like to stop it here and see you guys in the next video. Bye.